Is it like too easy for you to have questions, or is it like still like too complex that you don't have
Actually,
questions?
understood, and then questions will come up when you like sit and
Practice.
code and
Yes.
practice.
Yeah.
Yes.
But is it clear?
Yeah.
Like, do you think like state
Yeah.
and passing props
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and functions?
Yes.
Like, yeah.
I like the way you analyze the problems and then you take them bit by bit and then you know like because sometimes for me let me talk for myself you see the whole picture like this one when you did the check button
Yeah.
you did the check then it made it easier for you to pass the
Yeah. Yeah. This is like,
but sometimes so if we don't tackle it from the right side
yeah,
then
exactly.
it becomes
But this is called, so there is programming,
Mm.
and there is something called software engineering,
okay.
which is engineering.
Mhm.
It's like when you build a bridge, you don't just go, hey, let's build a bridge, and you start like putting stuff and you build. No, there is like a whole study around like how many cars will pass, the weight, the wind. If you build a bridge in China, it's not the same as you build a bridge between Sweden and Denmark because everything is different, the length is different. So it's an engineering. It needs to have a lot. So while building, you will do a lot of mistakes, and you will start to avoid them. You know what I mean? Because I tackled a lot of problems from the wrong side. I got the experience that, okay, if I will do this, I know that it doesn't work because once I did this, and
It didn't work.
you know what I mean. Even if it works, but like having extensible, we call it scalable code. That means like when the complex, for example, if you want to add another button to click all and delete all, it's really simple here.
Yeah.
But if we wrote it in a different way, it will be difficult to add these buttons. That means like scaling and writing more code would be like snowball. It will be just complex and complex and complex and complex. But when you sit with yourself and you imagine scenarios, this is why React is good, because React forces you to do it in a scalable way. Even though in the beginning you think it's stupid. Like, why I'm doing this? Like a lot of people like question and say like I can just do it without event listeners. But this is the idea. React will make your code scalable and make you tackle problems from a specific way. You will not rely on the DOM. It will let you generate data from, so it will handle synchronicity for you. It will synchronize stuff. So this is, of course, this is by experience. So you cannot blame yourself that you don't have this, because technically you cannot have this. You cannot know how to cook before cooking. You cannot imagine a recipe and do it in your mind. You need to sit and do the wrong ingredients, and next time, like say, I need to do less of this.
And I cannot always use that as an excuse for me.
Yeah. So you just like need to do a lot of mistakes and keep doing it and keep doing it until you will be like really aware how the system can go wrong, what to avoid to not make the system wrong. But this is just it's some sort of engineering. It's like thinking. When I say engineering, I don't mean university. I don't. You got the idea. I don't mean university when I say engineering. I mean the process of thinking and analyzing complex problems and dividing them into smaller problems. Instead of treating the whole to do as one thing, I have an input and the button we click a function. I have a list. I compose these two. It's like dividing problems. It's called divide and conquer. I don't know if you know the word. Divide and conquer. Yeah. It's this. If you have an array for 4 items, you divide it into 2, 2, and you divide 2, 2 into 1, 1. It's called divide and conquer. This is really important in computer science because most of the problems that people solve, like if you go to Google or Facebook, they have huge problems because there's billions of people, not billions, millions, 2 billion, connected and typing at the same time. But no one can actually process that complex. It's like mathematics. So in mathematics, you have like expressions and you have like equations, but these equations you get them with time, so you can actually change this by this. But essentially, all these complex equations they're backed by small symbols. So if you say like the integral of ex plus 1, you can divide it. Look just at this and at this and look at the plus 1. Look at the e. So it's really important to divide the problems because no one, even if he's like a crazy engineer with 30 years of experience at Facebook, he cannot keep the complexity in mind because your mind will not be able. The more you keep stuff in your mind, the more you will not be able to think effectively. So the idea is like when you have a really large problem, think about it in small problems and start thinking from the small problems. And after that, build, and merge the problems. Because like just having, I want to build to-do list. Okay, what? I need an input. It's like, so this is really important, and just like read about it and practice it. So whenever you want to build something, just grab a pen and paper, draw it, and try to think about it. Sometimes your mind doesn't allow you to do that. You can say, I will just jump and write code. It's easy. I will just do it. But try to fight this. Every time when you are ready to write code, you have a solution in mind. You should never start writing code and trying. This is really dangerous. It will haunt you in interviews. Because in interviews, if they will not see someone who's communicating, because you will communicate an issue and say, I can solve it this way. And he will say, yeah, but this is wrong and you can solve it this way. But if you just jump and start typing, he will not know what you are doing. He will not be able to communicate with you. He will not be able even to help you or correct you because your solutions are not clear. So be really, communicate your solutions, think about them a lot. So whenever you are typing, you are ready actually, and you have a solution in mind. So you are trying a solution. You are not trying to find a solution. You have a solution and you want to try it. This is when you program. So programming should not replace thinking. This is, but anyways, this is.
I have one question. Can you
Yeah.
go back to code? Shouldn't we divide this list into item and each node do
Of
like
course, a better code will be like that. Yes.
Yes.
We should put this into an item. And yeah, that will make the code smaller. If I want to change item, I can just go to one component.
Yeah. And then when we are setting a state,
Yeah.
you should always go to parent, or you can set state for the parent of.
Yeah, the idea here is different. As he said, like it depends how you see the problem. For example, the input. I know that the input doesn't have anything to do with the list, so I kept it in the header. You know what I mean? But I cannot keep the list inside the list here component because I need to edit it, and I need to get the text from this one to put it here. So I need to put it in the parent, so the parent can coordinate between the two children. So it's usually start with putting all the state up. That's easier. So everybody can access, because if you put a state in the list, so now index cannot access. Index cannot change the header here. We cannot do that here because it doesn't control it. The header controls it. So this is the problem. If now I need to control this at something, I need to move it up to this state. So it depends. It's like doing a for loop until 5 or until 4. Depends on your problem. We can never have. Do you have any more questions? So let's try and close the subject of state and go to another thing. Yes? There is one last thing.
Whose state is that?
There is one last thing.
Last thing?
Yes, which is life cycle. I don't know if you know what life cycle means.
In general meaning, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So what does it mean in general?
You are born and then you die in
Okay.
Not
So
that.
at specific points in your life, there is like something will happen. So you will get born. That's a life cycle. I was born. After that, you will die. Maybe you graduate from university. Like that could be a life cycle. That could be, yeah. Like I graduated. That's a life cycle. Something like that. If you want to do something though, but this is essentially a life cycle. It's an event that occurs in your life. And the React component also has a life cycle. We already used 2 life cycles. I don't know if you've noticed that. The first one is the constructor. The constructor is a life cycle because the component is constructing itself. That's a life cycle. It's like you were born. That's a life cycle. Another life cycle we use is the render. The component is rendering now. And render happens after the constructor. Because we construct the component, after that we render it. Make sense?
Yes.
There's another life cycle called component did mount. Means, you know what mounting means? Mount. You put something on the wall, for example, you mount it.
Yeah.
It's like I'm mounting the TV on the. So when the component will be on your So after rendering, the component is done and it's in the screen. There is something called component did mount. It's did mount. The component is already mounted in the screen. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So to do something after the component is done rendering, you can create a method like this. It's called component. It's like a special name, like the render. It's component did mount. What does it mean? I'm done mounting. So React will run the constructor first. After that, run the render. After that, run the component did mount. Make sense? Does it make sense? Okay. So let's say a console.log here.
Does return some things?
You don't need to return anything because it's just like I updated. So even if you return something, it will not have any meaning. It's like I'm done mounting. Okay. So what? Rendering is special. You need to return what to show. But component did mount, like it's React is just telling you that I'm done mounting. You want to do something, do it on your own. If you return me something, I don't care.
But the purpose,
So what
we worked
exactly?
without component did mount. And
Why do we use it?
Yeah, we will see. There's a lot of missing stuff. One thing is really important is data fetching. If you want to fetch data, when you will fetch it. If you want to load stuff. Yeah, but when you will load the stuff. When the component is done rendering, like Facebook, when you click on friend, a component will appear with the discussion, and that component, when the component will appear, it will fetch the data. But before clicking on any friend, we don't need to fetch the messages between you and the friend. So when you click on it, you mount it because it's a component that is mounted. React will tell you, I'm done mounting. When it's done mounting, you say fetch data. So you don't fetch data for all friends. There is no need for that. There's like a lot of thousands of messages. So you only fetch data for each friend that you need. Same thing for a friend's profile. When you go to a friend's profile, we don't have the data for the profile. But when you go to his profile, the component of the profile is done rendering, we fetch the data. So we fetch the data on demand. Why? Because we don't want to. The data is expensive. Sometimes it's really big. Sometimes it will block you. In some countries, it's really expensive data. So we cannot just mess up with the data. Do you get a bit of an idea? So component did mount has a lot of things. This is just one of the. So the way you should get it is like all React is like a toolbox. Because there is so many frameworks like React, like Vue, Angular, Svelte, there is so many. But all these frameworks are toolboxes. Like a toolbox. It's like a box with a lot of tools in it. As you are experiencing it, maybe you will switch company, you will work with React. After that, another company it will hire you, it will work with Vue. So you will have two like toolboxes. When you open them, you will find like tools. So use the tools that really helps you. If you want to cook, you should not use like screwdriver. You know, you should get the tool. like
Take the
like
seeds out.
exactly flipping the pasta with screwdrivers. Yeah, so some people they do that. They just like use a tool for the purpose that it was never built for.
There's no spoon.
Yeah. So if you want like to spoon and stuff, go to the spoon toolbox and the knives and things. Same thing with React. React is a toolbox, has state, it has props, it has lifecycle. So you should understand what every piece of these serves for. Like state is for re-rendering, props is when you communicate parent-child, lifecycle is when something happens in React, when React is done running or not. After that, when you have a problem, you will open the React toolbox and you will try to find in the toolbox what helps you solve the problem. It's not vice versa. You don't ask, what's the purpose of this? No. You know this, you understand it really well. When you will get a problem, you will reason with it. Like for example, the problem, like I need to fetch data after the component. So I don't want to fetch data for a component until it's loaded and showed on screen. Oh, I open my React toolbox. Oh, there's component did mount. I will use it. You get the mindset? It's not the other way. You are not limited by the framework. The framework is a toolbox that you open to get solutions.
Yes.
This is really important. So you don't get stuck with one framework and only think of no. It's just a toolbox. So component did mount is a tool that help us do something when React is done rendering. What's that thing? Well, it depends on your problem. We don't know. Maybe you want to fetch data, maybe you want to do something else. Make sense? Maybe, for example, when someone will click a button, or not click a button, when someone will click on a friend, or when you, for example, let's say you go to, like, I don't know, there's some websites where they allow you to just like browse the website for, or to send messages for 5 minutes. So you can click on send message, it will open a pop-up, and right after opening the pop-up, you can say in the component did mount, you can say set timeout. After 5 seconds, stop the user from sending messages. You can imagine so many different scenarios.
Yeah.
But you are not limited by just component did mount. You just need to understand every piece, how it fits, and use that piece according to your problem that you are solving. Is this clear?
Yes.
We'll explore so many life cycles that doesn't make any sense. But if you work in a really complex React project, you will use it. You know what I mean? It's like 99% this, you will say this is shit, I don't need this. But there is one problem that is really complex that needs this. And the React people behind React, they know that. Because they built it and they experience it like real problems. So some of them, they don't really like serve anything, but it will serve you one day when you will have complex project. So React life cycle. So this is the life cycle behind React.
Seems the vicious cycle.
What?
Seems the vicious cycle.
Yeah. So this is so React has phases. The way you should get it. You can see we have mounting, we have updating, and we have end mounting. Mounting is the first time you render the component. That's mounting. Updating is like when the props change or the state change with set state or something. That's updating.
Is that re-rendering?
Re-rendering.
Yeah.
Updating. It's called updating. And mounting is like when the component is about to disappear. For example, when you delete to do item, the component itself will disappear.
Yeah.
Make sense? That's end mounting. So there is 3 phases.
Yeah.
Is that clear?
Yes.
And every phase has its own stuff. So mounting. Mounting needs the constructor. So the constructor will be called first in mounting. You remember the constructor with
Yeah.
super and
Yes.
yeah. Because if we will see this, this is just a constructor. This is like and this dot and this dot. So when you put it, so this, the code that we had before, it will be converted to this. It's the same. Make sense?
Yes.
Is it fine if I will keep it like this version?
Keep it
Like this?
like it's okay.
No.
The other one. This is confusing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
confusing. But just think about it, that all that code will run in the constructor. Sorry. Democracy. They all want elections. Exactly, the majority decide that. Yeah. Yeah. So whenever you, for example, when you render the component, let's say here we are rendering up. So before rendering up, we need to construct up because it's a class. So we say new up, but this is done by React behind the scene. We don't care about that. Make sense? So when you see that up slash, React will construct. Okay?
Yes.
There is this life cycle that is shared between, but don't think about it. We don't care about it now. It's one of these life cycles that you need like 99% you don't need it. So we don't want to discuss it now. I use it maybe 3 times in my life. I have a short life. But like I'm saying, my life is like it's long. It's so short. But anyways, so we have constructor. After the constructor, right away, what do we have? The render.
Random things.
That's right. We construct the state and stuff. We render. After that, what do we have?
React plus image.
No. We don't care about that. The one that expanding.
Okay.
So we have constructor. We have render. Done rendering. Component did not. And this is why, for example, here. You can see test, or I can do better. Yeah, like I want to illustrate the constructor, but let's put a constructor. Okay. Console.log. It's up, and we have constructor. Okay. After that, we have
Render.
code component did mount.
No, after that we have render.
But it doesn't matter how we write the code.
Okay.
That's a different thing. We have component did mount. After that we have render. Make sense?
Yes.
So now if I will refresh, I will say constructor, render, component did mount. So it's not relative to how we define here, how we define it in here. It doesn't matter. I can put this after the render. These are just methods, but how we call them is different. So we call the constructor, we call the render, we call the component did mount. This is the life cycle. This is the life of React. This is the life of React component, to be specific, not React. So we have constructor, we have render, we have component did not. Make sense?
Yes.
Let's say we add an item. That means we call a set state to add an item. That means a re-render. It's called updating. And can be from new props, can be from set state, because if the parent props change, like the list, if the list change, even the list is not changing inside the list. The list is not changing here.
Yeah.
The list is changing inside the parent. But because we are passing it as props, React know that the props change, so we need to re-render the child. So it's called because of new props or set state or force update. Force update is just like you can call this dot force update and in React will update even if you don't call set state. It's stupid. It should be avoided. But so these are two main things: new props or set state. Updating. It will call something called should component update. So there is a life cycle called should component update. What's the purpose of that? It's not really important, but it acts as a performance like a boost. So you can say, I don't want my component to update. The illustration of that is should component update. So if you return true, let's say, no, return false. So I'm typing, I'm adding, but nothing is added. Why?
Because it's false. So it should
Because what I'm saying here is like return false. So React will see this. So this is a function that you return false or true inside it. If you return true inside it, React will not update. Because you are saying, should the component update? True or false? You get the idea? Why it's used? Because sometimes you want to skip updates. Why? In some edge cases that we don't need now. But just remember that there is a life cycle that can stop, but it's not important. So if should component update returns false, there is no stuff like that. It will just stop. It will keep the old. But most of the time it will say update. Most of the time it will say, it will return true. So by default it returns true, so we skip it. So updating with set state, we call render again. So we render again. And whenever we are done rendering, we call not component did mount, but component did update. So the first time we mount, we call component did mount. After that we are updating, we call component did update. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
It's just a different names. So this is called once after mounting. This is called multiple times every time you re-render. Let's try and use it. Component did update. So now we do this constructor render component did mount. Let's try and type something. Test add render component did update. So the first time we have constructor render should component did mount. After that we say render again to re-render the list or re-render the app, and component did update. If we type another test tree, we only see render component did update. So we keep seeing render. So render is running again and component update because the component updated. But you don't see component did mount because it's just for the first time. And when the component is about to be deleted, like it will be gone from our screen, there is component will end mount. It's like it will be called before end mounting. So React will tell you, hey, I will disappear. Do you want to do something before disappearing? And it will disappear. Is it too much?
Look at him, man. I can't say it.
But I'm just explaining. Right?
It's like, oh my god.
Is it complex? Like, well, the only thing that we need is the component did mount. The only thing that we need is the component did mount.
Yes.
Maybe you need this, but it's good to have. As we said, like we are putting more stuff in the toolbox. We are putting this. After that, it's up to you to use which one. But is this clear?
Yeah.
No questions?
In examples, we will understand better.
Yeah, but is the picture
Yes.
Yeah, it should.
We-
picture about like when and where it's
Yes.
happening? How we use it? That's a different story,
This
as I
is
said.
for memory managing?
What?
This is for memory managing?
No, this is called life cycle. React life
What
cycle.
is the benefit of this from the program?
Don't think about this, as I told you. Like think about it as a toolbox. You have this, you have this, you have this, you have this. As you are building UIs, you will need them. It's like you have salt, you have sugar. You cannot say what's the purpose of this. But in different dishes, you use it in different ways. You know, so as we are building apps, we will use different life cycles. But this doesn't have like a specific thing that you need to do. No, this is a constructor and this is a component did mount. If you want to do something while the component is rendering, do it here. If you want to do something after the component is done, do it here. If you want to do something after the component is updated, you can do it here. And one thing before, if you work in old code bases, before render, there was here something called, so this is component did mount. There was something called component will mount. It's like it will mount.
Yeah.
It's like between the constructor and the render. But if you want to do something, it's not necessary. It was removed. It's still not removed completely, but it's removed. It's in the
Unsafe.
yeah, it's unsafe. So the idea is like if you have something here, like you either do it in the constructor or you do it in the render. There's no point in having something in the middle. Just do it here or here. So this is why it was removed mainly. There's other reasons, but this is one of the main things.
I mean, it
Now we
looks.
understood the tools.
Exactly. Now keep the tools and reason about them.
We will learn how to use those tools.
Exactly. No, I will show you a few examples how it can be used. But the sky is the limit.
Okay.
If you go and work in any project,
We understood that the spoon is for
exactly.
baking.
Yeah,
Screw is for
exactly. Screw driving. And I cannot give you one specific
Now
like.
you understand how. to-
Exactly. But I will just give you a few examples. But the sky is the limit. You wanted to say
Sky's
something?
the limit.
Yeah, the sky is the limit.
I want to say that like it looks like really, I mean, a lot of stuff on the graphics, but actually the one that you will be using the most are like
Is
less
this-
than half of it. So you just need to know they exist. You don't need like you're not going to use everything
Yeah.
all the time. There will be like only like, for example, for me, I only use constructor like component did mount, component did update, component will unmount. Because like those ones are, I virtually didn't use them, never used them.
What?
For like should component
Oh.
update, derive
It's
state
performance.
control.
Like,
Yeah.
If,
Yeah, it's
only
for
if you have
for-
performance.
For performance, yeah, I never use them.
Yeah.
So don't worry that don't worry about that. It's going to be a lot of content.
Yeah.
It's not. So let's get it.
Yes. So remember this. Remember it.
Yeah.
We will mostly, as she said, use this and this. After done updating, after done rendering. You will go home and keep staring at it. Just keep looking at it. Remember? No. So we are good. Yeah, good to go. So let's say, for example, we have a to-do list, but it's in the backend. It's not in the front end. Okay? I have a list of items, but it's coming from backend. Because usually this is how it works.
Yes.
You don't want to refresh and lose everything.
Yes, yes.
This is the idea. It's a backend. When you add, you put a backend. Adding, it will be something else. But what we will do today is actually getting stuff from an API. So there is this API. I honestly used it once or something. It's called JSON placeholder. So this is a free API. You don't need to build it. It's just for you. And basically, you will just fetch this, and it will give you a JSON of to-dos. So you can see ID, title, completed. ID, title, completed. We will change completed to be done, but done false or true. Make sense?
Yeah.
So let's do that. Let's fetch this data. So we have the URL. We can just call our fetch function. We get a promise, and we do the stuff. Then, and we do the stuff. It's like normal JavaScript. So yeah, let's create a function. Get to dos. Make sense? We'll say return fetch. We give it a URL. We say done. And we give it a callback. And we say before that, sorry. We say we convert it to JSON.
Yes.
So response. Make sense?
Yes.
After that, we can say done and just do a console.log or body. Just body. Let's call it outside of React. We don't care about React. Let's just call it outside. We call get to dos. We expect to get something. Yes. We have 200 to do list. Is this clear?
Yes.
Just a fetch. I think it's a bit too much. So let's just go like this. Yes, someone liked it. I'm not left alone with my life cycle. Okay. Cool. So now, are you all familiar with async await? async, await. Okay, never mind. That's fine. Just want to make stuff complex, but no, we don't want.
Explain. Just
No. I don't want to make stuff complex. It's just,
it's not making it complex.
it's making it complex. You will lie down. You will lie down again. I don't want.
I was just joking it, that's all.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Just write the name and Google it.
It's just a different way to write promises. This is the idea, but it doesn't give us what.
I think we are better with the old ones. so
With
we can
exactly, we are better. We are
react.
really good now. So we will just return this and move the console.log outside. Is this
Yeah.
good for you? We just move the callback. We return the promise
Yeah.
and we moved it outside. We have essentially the same logic. So now we will call this to get data and put it inside our state. So instead of having this dummy state here, we will put it and use it from the server. This is like a real kind of feeling.
Yes.
So I will first just remove this. Okay?
And you but
Yes. And yeah, so I will remove this. And we need to fetch now. But we cannot fetch it here. Because I cannot change state here or do anything.
Yeah.
I want to fetch inside the component. When the component is done rendering, I'm sure that I need data because I need to display it. I can fetch. Is this clear? So this is a really good candidate for component did mount.
No.
When we are done mounting, it's in the screen. I can fetch data. I'm sure that I need it now. So I just fetch it and maybe I need it, maybe I not. Like now, we are fetching it, but we don't need it. But now, let's go to component did mount. Do this. Instead of saying console.log body, we will say set state.
60, yeah.
And we say items. It's the body array. We have like huge, like. So, but we just need to adopt some stuff. So here it's called title.
Yeah.
So we go to list and we change text to title and we change something else. We change completed, done to completed.
Is that Spanish?
Looks like Spanish.
It's not Lorem Ipsum.
Yeah, it's low.
It's lorem ipsum, yes. It's Latin, even worse. It's like no one here understands that, yeah, I'm sure. But we don't care. I will do delicious autumn. It looks like French. Tempora, tempora, I don't know.
You're alright because Latin is the mother
Yeah,
of both
But
Spanish and French.
yeah, but I just like, but I don't know Spanish. I know French, so this
Yeah,
is
that's why I said Latin is the mother.
yeah. So I can maybe read a bit of it, but anyways, no one here wants to invest time to read like Latin
Homework with this.
in 10 minutes.
Who did it in Latin or Spanish or whatever?
It's just a placeholder. It's just a dummy data. So this is an API that helps you build your API.
Okay.
It's just a random API online.
I know, but I just wonder who did it this way.
Somebody.
It's just lorem ipsum.
It's lorem ipsum. You don't know lorem ipsum? It's a text generator. Generate text in Latin. So if you want a lot of text, you can go to lorem ipsum. They will give you a lot of text. Random text, a slash. So instead of typing like randomly, they will give you text.
Okay.
So now we have an app with real data. We can delete, we can check, we can check. So even that we changed our data to async data, we didn't touch our code base. This is real power of like composing stuff. It's like, we don't care anymore.
We still need to rename something.
No, but we renamed because we didn't have the names from the beginning.
Yeah.
But if I know that my database has a name,
Yeah,
I would just go and use the correct name.
sure.
You know what I
I'm
mean?
saying- I'm just
Yeah.
saying we still need to.
Yeah, of course. Any question about this?
Can you change the item
item.com.
Where's
Yeah, down here.
Yeah, class
Item,
name, item,
class
class name.
name. Go
Instead.
down.
oh yeah.
Okay, now looks better.
No, it doesn't work because when we update, it's just when we update we named it. So here, for example,
Yeah, it is done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Better.
where's the add new? Yeah, this one. So now we say complete, and we can go here and just keep deleting. It's 200 items.
That's why it's good to have a button to delete or to check.
Yes, you can do it.
Yeah, do your homework.
Dangerous guy. We have
I'm
this.
just kidding. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
I have a question.
Just a second. Yeah. It's working now. So I have an idea. We can just so instead of setting this items, we can say where we are loading data. Oh, I got confused. Yeah. So we can say body dot slice. Yeah, start. So we can say 10. Slice will return a new array from 0 until 10. We can take from 10 to 15 or something. You get the idea.
Yeah.
You have a question?
Yes, you had a question.
What if we want to connect file JSON that is on our computer? Not a link to the.
Yeah, but you can build a server through Express, and you will have a layer like localhost / to-dos, and you fetch it instead of fetching this one. Because essentially this is just fetching this URL. This URL can be localhost / like
But
8080.
we cannot connect to the JSON file.
Oh, you should not do that because now you have the JSON file. But when you put this application on real life, when you put it in real servers, how it's gonna get the JSON files?
Yeah.
Do you get the idea?
Yeah.
So the browser doesn't allow to request files. The browser only allows to request URLs, not specific files. That would be dangerous. That you can request files specifically from. So we should export stuff through APIs. Questions?
You still look very confused.
Yeah.
No.
I think with
Makes sense.
with this enough knowledge, like loading data, changing data and stuff, you are like able to build like sort of like most of the applications. Because now you can data, you can change it.
Can we see
Let's
the
see
update one?
the fetch.
Yeah.
So this function
Yeah.
fetches the data.
Yeah.
Now what do you put after component did not?
Component did mount. I say get to dos.
Yes.
That will call this function
JSON file.
And we fetch the
and return the fetch.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's done, convert it to response.json. And after that, say then. I have the list. I set the state with the list that I got. I slice it. I take only the first 10 items. I don't want 200. Is not clear? Which part is confusing? Is it the function part?
Why did you set the
This one? You
state?
mean this one?
No, the state. Why did you set it in the?
Because when the data is loaded and it's done, I want to change the state.
When it's loaded, what?
So we load data from a URL. So we have an API.
Yeah.
So let's say I will do this. I will say network. Empty. I will get the data. So you can see that we are doing a request and waiting, because we are getting data from a server, from an API, through this URL. You get the idea? I will wait when the promise will resolve. I will set state. Here, I'll say get to dos is the fetch. When the fetch is done, this callback will be invoked, which is the then callback, and it will say set state.
You have to set state, otherwise you are not going to get that data into the state actually.
Yeah, if I will not,
Do you
If you
have
just
do you have
push
set
it.
up there?
I have set state here.
No, there's
No,
right
no,
now
I
there's
mean
nothing.
the original state.
It's empty now.
What is it?
This is no
Because
data.
you want to put that data that you fetch from the
Okay.
API into
Okay.
that. So
No, I get
you
it.
You got the idea?
Yeah.
So now we don't have the. It's like Facebook. When you load Facebook, it's loading.
No, I get
It
you are-
fetches
you are
the
using-
feeds.
You are using this thing to set.
Exactly. It's like Facebook. You load the data. It's loading. When the data is here, they set state. Literally, Facebook is built using React,
So now
and they use set state to
you
replace
put
it.
the data into the state.
Yes, we load it into the state, so we can interact with it. One thing we can do is improve. For example, when it was slow here,
Yes, yes.
we can have a loading state.
Can we make it faster?
Well, you cannot make a request to a server faster because it's limited by your internet. Pay more, you faster. This is the idea. It's normally it's fast. It's fast. You can see. No throttling. You can see. It's fast.
Yeah.
But it's on purpose. So when you test application, you can test them. You should test your application not on fast internet. You should test your app in slow internet because most of the world doesn't have fast internet.
Yes,
Yes, okay. So I'm showing you like how to do that. So now we have slow 3G, which is like really the mainstream in my country. So it will take 5 seconds or something.
Yeah.
So, is there any way to improve our course to make it faster?
No, you are waiting for an internet call that doesn't have anything to do with your code.
We can't do anything.
No, because when you say give me this,
Yeah.
well, maybe you can do it. For example, if you are requesting 3 megabytes, you can only request 1 megabyte.
Yeah, that's my one.
Yeah, but in this case, we are requesting the minimum, only the list.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
we can have it as a plugin like this.
no, this is the Chrome Dev tool, the amazing Chrome Dev tool.
In your dev tool.
It's network,
Yes,
and you can
network.
see here. No throttling, fast, slow. You can say offline to see how your app behaves when it's offline. Anyways, let's do something now. Because when it's slow, we don't have any indication that it's loading or anything. We have empty array, but it's not empty. It's that we are waiting. So that's like a false thing that we present to the user. So in most applications, you will have something called, I don't know, you will have something called state request or request state or something. It's a flag that determine the state of the request. So initially the request is loading. After that it's done. And when it's done, it could be an error and it could be done. Okay? So how we will do it, there's a lot of people, they do it through booleans. So you can have a boolean, is it loading or not? And you have an error, but to keep them both, it's confusing. So how we will do it? We will have a flag here called request state. It's the state of my request. How is it loading or something? I will do it loading in the beginning. It's wrong to do it loading. It should be initial, for example, because I'm not loading now.
Okay.
I will start loading by this.
Yeah.
But let's say it's loading now. Okay? And whenever I'm done, which is in component did mount, I will change items, and I will also change the state of request state to be done.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yes.
I have a value in the state called request state. Initially it's loading. When it's done, I call it request it's done. Now I can do something. Instead of returning this, I can say if, oh no, well I cannot say an if here. I will do this. And I will say request state. I will say request state equal loading. We render p with loading. Otherwise, we render the list. So now, we refresh, we get loading, and we have the list. Clear?
Yeah.
For all of you? Or it's you are looking at me and really would he would throw something on me. I'm sorry. It's not really the purpose. Is it clear?
One small thing that I want to mention is like I see that some of you directly put this kind of code just from the curly braces.
Yeah.
This part in the function.
Yeah. Do you want to do that? You want to put
No, I'm just saying that like we put the curly braces here because we are writing JavaScript code inside of JSX.
Yeah.
So
Otherwise,
we need to wrap it.
otherwise it will be like this.
Actually, it happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we need to do this so we can say to JSX, hey, this is JavaScript.
Yeah. And on the contrary, in the function you don't need to do this.
Yeah.
So just remember
Yeah.
when to use and when to
If you we can do this. We can say what she's saying is like we can say const. I don't know. Just name it x. Now we don't have to do the curly braces because it's inside JavaScript. But whenever we are inside JSX, we need to do the curly braces. Questions?
How can we update our API?
So whenever you update here, whenever you update here, you do a request to update.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, you do like here. You take the ID, because I'm not sure if they support that. This is not a full-fledged API, but the idea is like you can do.
I think they also have like the fake put.
Yeah, I think they
Yeah, they do.
You can call to-dos. You can call to-dos with /1 or 2 / your ID, and pass to it what you want to update. But essentially it's just a request. So you do a request to their services, and you say update this ID to be done, or update this ID to be true. And you can also delete. You can also make add. Add can also go to their services.
Like
Just-
no problem.
You know, it's like you have your own API. So, but that will be just a bit difficult, because when you update, you need to wait for them to answer you with the 10. So you cannot just do this immediate effect, because whenever you click, you wait for them. So it's a bit problematic, but it would be really good exercise to do actually for you. Yes, like if you want to really learn more and handle stuff, it's really good. Any more questions?
Can we go to homework now?
No, we still have half an hour.
Finished. Did update.
Yeah.
It's a bit more tricky even.
I think we can go to that because it will take much time.
Yeah. We have component did update. So yeah. I think they are quite familiar with component did update because it's not a huge issue.
But what is the use case?
Lot of use.
Now I can only think of like the input use case.
For example, if you have a component that fetches specific to do, every time you update the props, it will fetch different to do stuff. So a component did mount is like, so component did mount is essentially when you render and you are done, you do something. component did update is actually so when you update your component through a props or set state, it will trigger. So you can do the same thing. Let's say I don't really have a realistic example, or at least I need to write a lot of code, but
I have an idea.
Yeah.
Like, so when you do search, the real time search,
Yeah.
then you can use component did update.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
But I don't know if this is.
We don't have search. But anyways, component did update. It will trigger every time
The update is done.
the update is done. After the update, did update. So
Yeah.
I'm done updating. Did update, not will update. Did update. Make sense?
It's more like an observer, like you are like comparing either props or states. So you don't just like say okay component update and put something inside.
Yeah.
You usually would say if something changes, like you compare with the previous props or previous states, and then you do something.
Yeah, because what she's saying is like this component the component will update, but the update, why did the update happen?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the state changed, maybe the props changed. Which part of the state? Maybe the input changed, maybe the list changed. So based on what changed, you can do something.
Yeah. Maybe you wanna check with something that changed. You wanna check that and use that.
Yeah, maybe for example, if you are fetching stuff based on an ID, if the ID changed, you want to fetch the stuff again. So let's say this is yeah. So I think this one has
You can use you still use this API get and
Yeah.
the ID.
yeah. I'm thinking about having the user ID, and we change the user ID. And
Yeah, that was all.
But can we filter over the user IDs?
You have to give a very specific ID. You see the get method. There's like very specific.
So if
query.
if we have users and we have one and we have slash to dos, yes, and that will not be realistic, but
Or just directly inside of one user and search for to do.
what do you mean?
You can still slash after to do.
Oh, you can
Yeah.
say one
Why it's not there?
user. I think to get a specific to do, maybe you need to do this. Yeah, you need to
Okay.
do this.
Okay.
But anyways, yeah.
It's not this one.
Can you follow, please,
Dude,
guys?
Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. So is it clear? Not just this, even the component did update. When the component will be updated.
Not really.
No, but you can understand that, for example, if something changed, you want to do another request.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But it's just like, for example, now we use the component did mount because we want, when the component is mounted, we wanted to fetch the to-dos.
Yes.
Let's say we want to fetch the to-dos of a user ID and it's changing. So every time we change the user ID, component did update, we fetch different things.
Yes.
You get the idea?
Yeah.
So you can use component did update to react. So react means like reacting, not react the framework. So you can react to the render, it's done, and fetch stuff. You can also react to the component is done updating and fetch stuff or do other things, or say console.log, or I don't know. Or validate.
For example, like you have an input and you're searching for something, and usually like when you put A and then you will just filter out a list of items for you, right? But then but then if you keep typing, how does like the React know you're still typing and I need to do the filtering, right? And that's where you want to like kind of watch this change. You're in the did update, you are saying if say input the value is not equal to previous state dot input the value, and then you do the
Yeah.
you do the filter.
Yeah.
Can you understand this part?
So if the input change, so while you are typing, the component is re-rendering, and the input is changing, and you check if it's rendered because of the input, because maybe it's re-rendering because of the list. You do a request to YouTube API to show a list. You type something else, straight away you do another request because the component is updating. And on the update, you are fetching different things. There is one more lifecycle which is really important, which is the component
Well, unmount.
will unmount. The role of component that unmount is to clean up if something is happening, or this is a famous use case. But for example, if you have a set timeout inside your component, okay, and your component will disappear. The set timeout is already running, or the set interval, because the set interval will keep running, like every 1 second, every 1 second. You want to clear the set interval before leaving the component, otherwise the set interval will be running. So on the did mount, you say set interval, you save the ID, on the component will unmount, you know that the component will disappear, you say clear interval. So component will unmount is for cleaning, for doing stuff that the component is about to leave. Somehow. The famous example is the counter example. You're incrementing when the component is about to leave, you disable the counter. You say clear interval in the component. And the way you do it, you just simply, for example, we can the list can be extracted. So let's extract this. It's item. And we say item equal item. I will just put it here for the sake of simplicity. Extends react dot component. And we can say const this dot props. We get the item, but also we need toggle item, and we need delete item. Make sense?
Yes.
And we need to pass it here. Delete item, and we have toggle item. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
We just created another component to host our child, and we pass to it the needed items: item, delete, and toggle, and we receive them here. Make sense? Let's say now let's exercise a bit of component did mount. Okay. No, we don't want this, but what we want is, let's copy this and comment them. So now let's have component did mount. Let's have component did update. Let's have component will unmount. And here we say item, item, item. Sorry, we are doing it in the wrong place. We just need to copy this and put it here. We want it on the item. So now when we render items, we render multiple items. Yeah. So now you can see I have item, component, will mount. This is wrong. So we have 10 component did mount.
Yes.
Why?
Because there are 10 and
Because there is 10 items.
Yeah.
For every item, we mount every item.
yeah.
Mm.
Okay? If we add another item, test. One more component did mount because we added one.
Yeah.
So 10 plus 1. Make sense?
Yes.
Mm.
If we delete this one, component will end mount.
Why is that so?
I think it's because of the ID. But the interesting part is there is 9 component did update.
Yes.
Why? Because all these components update,
Yeah.
even that they don't need to update. Because React will like blindly go and update everything.
That's why we need to check when you want to update. Then you need to check the specific thing that you want
Yeah.
to watch.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's just going to be like re-rendered. And that's exactly what you don't want, because you talk about like performance, how to make the page faster, right?
So for example, now if we uncheck this item, we will have 9 did mount. Because when we uncheck this item, we are touching the whole array.
Yes.
We are mapping and returning a new array. So all of them is updating again. We can do some optimization to make only this update and stuff, but it's not unnecessary. React is really fast out of the box. So you will do this if you have like 10,000 items or something, which is like really rare. You should not present 10,000 items. The user will be like. But is this clear?
It's clear how you did it, but it's just not very clear why do it. You can say it.
For example, we used component did mount to actually. So for example, let's say you have like a counter here, counting how many items are here. If you delete this one, component did unmount, you make counter -1. When you add a new component did update, you add counter +1. You just need to imagine like how useful it is that you can actually at specific points in time you can hook and do your code. For example, now I will delete one item. I have component will end mount.
Yep.
Because it's end mounted. Not component did mount, it's component will end mount. So this component was removed and it was end mounted. Is this clear? The item was removed, so it will invoke component will end mount. You can, for example, check if you are updating this one, or for example, you can have like important tasks. When you're about to delete it, in component will end mount, you say, "Are you sure you want to delete it?" I can imagine so many scenarios, but that's you get it by experience. But what's really important is to grasp every life cycle and when it's running, and after that you can come up with a problem, because I cannot exactly give you a recipe now. It's like food. There's so many, like I use life cycles as so many different things in my application.
I mean, I can understand why you are thinking why this is useful. So imagine that like there are two things happening, like when you are, for example, like the data is coming in. There are two things actually is happening. First of all, like you're changing your like JavaScript part is happening. So if you do the console log, the data is changed. But then another thing is like the view also changed. But did you notice anywhere that you are really changed the view? There's no like, for example, like the DOM, like the body dot something dot, append something. There's not that part didn't happen, right? Because React is doing that part for you.
Yes.
So those life cycles is actually like doing this re-render the view part, like under the hood. And you're just like telling, okay, I want this part, I want this happen. But what you did is you only changed the code. You didn't really change the view. So that's the part you don't need to do. But you just need to like know, as long as I change the code, React is going to change the view for me. That's where it is useful. Okay?
So just one more thing, just keep asking myself, why do we need to fetch after we did mount it? Why not fetch as same as we are rendering?
Okay, because you render multiple times. So if I will put the fetching inside the render here, this is called multiple times. Every time we change the input, every time we change the list, so I will be fetching every time I render. I don't want that.
Yeah, I get it.
I want to render, I want to fetch, and at the same time, I cannot just fetch outside. Because if I have a lot of data, like Facebook, they have, for example, let's say you are all friend with me on Facebook. By the way, you can add me, it's fine. So let's say I clicked on you.
Yeah.
I will load your discussion.
Yeah.
I will fetch your messages.
Yeah.
But before clicking on you, do I need your data? Do I need to fetch your data?
This is my point. Like, why not fetching at the same time I'm clicking on you?
Because the issue is like, let's say you click something.
Yeah.
Okay, and you click another thing after it. So React needs. This is what we are doing. We are doing while you are clicking, but we cannot do while you are clicking because that's handled by React. So we are waiting for React to be done to do our stuff. Because technically I cannot say, oh, when you click this, fetch the data. Yeah, but I need to do it inside the component. So while I don't have the component, I cannot fetch data for this component because I don't have it. So when you click the component and it's on the screen, I will show the data. Because you can do so many optimization tricks. Let's say you click something, but it's rendering outside of the viewport.
Yeah.
You don't want it. You can't just not fetch data because outside of the viewport. So when the component is shown, you have so many flexibility on deciding to fetch. If you have 7 things to happen at the same time, you click on 7 friends. You can defer and just load the most important friend.
Yeah.
You get the idea? There is so many complex things you can do.
Yeah.
But once the component is there and it's done rendering, I'm sure that now I can manipulate and do a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Because before that, I cannot do set state because state doesn't exist because component doesn't exist. You know what I mean? But in component mount, I'm sure that there is state, component is shown, everything is in place. But if I do it before, even if I will do it in the constructor, maybe the component is really large to the point where I cannot run anything. Maybe it has like thousands of stuff, and React will be like. But anyways, when the component is done rendering, React will say, now it's your job if you want to do something.
Yeah, okay.
For example, if you click on friend discussion, so let's say you have a red bubble notification that there is a message. If you click on it, you mount the component. When it's done mounting, I say remove the notification.
Oh yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. I was just wondering about this
Yeah.
specific example you gave, which is fetching when clicking, and after we show up the view of the front end of the page, and then fetch it, and then again render the fetch. That's was confusing.
Yeah, because like the idea that you need to keep in mind that while clicking and showing the chat is happening in less than like 1 second. Like it's really less. It's like 10 milliseconds or something. You cannot even see it. It's like sometimes when you click, you do this, it's there in a really good UI. So this is the idea. It's component did mount is not fetching after, because if you measure the time, it's like there is 2 milliseconds difference between rendering and component did mount. So yeah, but it's the safest place to fetch data. To be more, of course, like you need to challenge and ask questions. Like it's completely fine. I had the same questions, but with the experience, I really got it to that I need. For example, Facebook, with the new Facebook, what they do, they compute all the data that they need, and they fetch it before rendering anything. Like there is so many things you can do, but we are going simple, and this is what happened in every application. Even Netflix, when you open a movie in Netflix, it will show the movie and start buffering the data. To not start bringing the data before the movie will show, because there is no point, and we don't know exactly what the user gonna watch. So you can get this kind of idea how you do it.
Can we quickly go through the formatter?
Yes, you can go through that, or I can.
You can. So I don't need to plug in.
Yeah, but it depends on the editor that they use.
What editors are you guys using?
VS Code.
Who is not using VS Code? What are you using? What?
I'm the only one. That's all.
Yeah,
Atom?
you can beautify. Yeah, but that's in VS Code. But so there is this tool called Prettier.
Okay, let me see if Atom. Yeah, Atom also has.
There
it.
is, of course, like
Yeah.
it's.
So just
I will give you an example. There is Prettier. So Prettier slash playground. I don't know what happened. But let's say my code is really messy. Like this, it's like this. Render, it's like this, and this like this. Okay, this is sort of messy code. Make sense?
You don't put the spaces even in this messy code.
Yeah.
Like what you were saying.
This is sort of messy code. So if I will put it in Prettier here, last one, Prettier will format it for me. You can see it's bad here, it's formatted. So Prettier is a tool that takes your code, make it beautiful, format it. But it depends on what I mean by beautiful. But
I'll use it in VS Code.
yeah, there's an extension for VS Code. So if you open,
Yeah, I do that.
you need two steps. So first step, extension.
Yeah.
What?
so if you go to
Why your VS Code looks so different from mine?
it's just beautiful colors. So if you say if you open settings for VS Code, it's better to show them the no code UI. You can search for format.
Yeah, is there? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, this one.
Enable the format on save.
Yeah, but before you need to have this Prettier. So install Prettier code formatter. Extension called Prettier code formatter. And after that, you can go to the settings and say format on save.
Just enable it.
Yeah, well,
Check box.
yeah. So you can enable it here.
Remember to save.
Make sense?
For me.
Yeah, but you can just
Same.
Google
Atom
Prettier
also.
Atom. Prettier
Atom
Atom.
also has Prettier. It's called
Homework. Yes, I will.
I'll
store-
search more.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Because why is that important? I mean, so first of all, like imagine. Okay, let's talk about practical things. When your potential employer is looking at your code and your code and he has the same feeling as I am. This guy doesn't have inconsistent code. Is he just copy pasting all the time, or he just doesn't care how good his code looks, right? And then when you have like good formatted code and everywhere it looks the same, at least it shows that you care. Homework.
There's this one.
We also need to enable pretty code formatter or just format
Just
on
format
save?
and save. It's
Yeah.
fine.
So should we do GitHub one?
Do we have any other one?
What?
Do you have any other one?
We can either. So we can have them do both. This one.
We can do this one and then the other one maybe like has both.
But they need to practice data fetching. They need to. So they can do both.
Oh.
Because they already have boilerplate from my code for this one.
Yeah.
So they can only like.
Yeah, I think then
And they will like read a bit of code. And, yes, we are done preparing the homework. So you will do both homework for week 3 and week 4.
okay.
Yes. So the idea is, so you already have my code, which is this one.
Almost.
Oh, people are liking my picture. They care. So, code from last. Yes, so just to pin it. So you have already my code. It's quite simple. We did it together somehow. So you will need to add a field called deadline. So you will not just have the description, you will also have a date. You don't need to mess up a date, just like type 10 slash, just give it a date. It's an input, it's a text input. You don't need to have the, you can have a calendar or something, but that's up to you. But this can be just a text. And we already have this, we already have remove. Okay? So your job will be to, so this is not a bonus. It used to be a bonus because we already did this together. So you need to add this one. So you can display text and also date. And we have remove, we have delete. You will add an edit button. And whenever you click edit,
They should open it.
I would say that's up to you. The way I will do it, I will switch this text to be an input. I will have an if else. I will update is editing to true, and this will be an input. And whenever you click edit again, it will save it. Something like that, up to you. Or you can, when you say edit, load them here and edit them, and you click edit, it will edit. That's up to you. Make sense?
Yes. Are we gonna put the array like before in the set state because, or work with the API?
So it's up to you. You can remove the API like I did and only hard code it there,
Yeah.
because you know you can edit the code in component did mount. Up to you. And the other one is, so GitHub has an API. So the URL is
Here.
API.
no, this one is for everything. Yeah.
Every endpoint. Yeah, this one.
Is it this one?
Repo-
We don't want-
repository?
We want user search URL.
Oh, okay.
So if I will type Yunus, for example, you will get a list of. So it's an object that has items, and each item is a login and stuff. Make sense? So you fetch this, you will get an object that has a list. So you will type here something. Let's say you type Yunus, and you click search. It will do the request and list the users here. Make sense? I will put them together. Is this clear?
Yes.
And you will have loading and stuff. So these are the two homeworks. So this one is, it's one homework because this is just editing the edit, and you can have the after cancel editing and stuff. And you have data loading with GitHub. So this is the endpoint that you should use. So
When's
yeah.
the video coming online?
I will try to put it tomorrow. Last time I'm sorry, but last time I was a bit sick. Monday. I had the flu. So I didn't go to work. And my internet is really bad at home. So. Not bad.
Bad. Which company are you using?
I don't know, because I'm renting, so it's not. I think it's Telia.
So yeah, I also switched time ago like to Telia, but it's really like it just works right next to the router and not even to the in the bedroom.
Yeah.
It's really just irritating, and I'm also like,
I'm using UC, is actually quite okay.
yeah. Me too. Yeah. Oh yeah.